this video we're going to break down 3 different attacks, the first one taking a few attempts to clear and the next 2 both being fresh hits. This first one is a plan from 42. I did not help him plan, so I can only speculate exactly what his thought process was, but I think he thought of a great plan, and with the right adjustments we're able to get this one down. So this plan is going to be a Queen Walk Miner. He's going with a standard 4 healers. He has 27 miners, which I think is just about just right. If he could find a way to get a few more, that would be nice. But I do think the Queen Walk has enough value to almost carry this attack without having to invest too much. You don't have to use wall breakers, you don't have to use the slammer, no quakes, no jump, nothing like that. So he's going to use his Queen Walk right over here. And the reason he's doing this is because he has a ton of value in both the funnel and the defenses themselves. He's going to be able to get this Archer Tower, Bomb Tower, second Bomb Tower, Expo, Wizard Tower, another Archer Tower, and a couple storages, as well as a beautiful funnel. As if he's able to get this taken out, that leaves a very narrow pathing for the miners. He starts his Barb King right up top in the middle here, and it's able to clear out this trash, go down, and help take out this Wizard Tower right here. And that's going to allow his miners to get in to this pathing very quickly, and there's going to be no wasted time trying to beat through the gold mines or that elixir collector. He does have just a couple wizards to back up his Barbarian King, which I think is also very solid to make sure he gets through it quickly. He has a minion funnel up top at 1 o'clock. That's great value for only 2 troop space. He's able to get, I believe, all 4 of those buildings down right there. And besides that, you can see a spell comp down below. And he uses every spell on the miners, and I can only think that he may have meant to use the rage on the queen, since she is going to be going into pretty heavy fire. Not so much just from the defenses, but from the enemy queen if it draws to her, and you'll see that it does. So once the enemy queen draws to her, you are going to need something almost every single time, whether it's a freeze, poison, rage, or your ability. So you want to be able to get that down in time. This attack ends up falling just short, but it's still really close, and it looks like a pretty easy cleanup for the most part. And that's something really important about a plan, is being able to clean it up and making sure that there are adjustments that can be made, and it's not just a, if this fails, there's nothing you can do to change it. So let's take a look at the attack itself. Alright, so this attack's going to start pretty slowly, as he does let his queen get a little ways in before he starts his miners. Starts with the minion funnel up top and has the queen right down below. He is able to get the town hall pretty much for free with just 1 wizard. That's a lot of hit points for free. You probably don't want to give that up as a base designer, but if you feel it creates the most optimal pathing for wall wreckers and blimps to run into trouble, I understand why he did it. So he starts his king out just a little bit after his queen, and his queen does walk right where he wants him to, and he's able to get really good value on the funnel. He's going to pop his king ability in just a moment, and as you can already see, this has really nice pathing for the miners going straight through the core of the base. King goes down in a second. He starts his slammer up top. Slammer has miners in it, and this is where the attack fails, unfortunately. I don't know if he took his eye off his queen or he thought his queen was going to be able to get through it, but the enemy queen, along with a couple point defenses, is able to take out his queen. From there, he gets a really late poison down that doesn't end up affecting anything, unfortunately, other than, I believe, a couple of the archers. So all the miners are in. He uses his rage and his first heal spell going through the first Inferno Tower. He does overlap the spell some. You want to try to avoid that, and if you are going to overlap, you want to make it as minimal as possible. He gets his second heal down, overlapping his first one, and his third heal overlapping his second. That's probably, besides the Queen Walk, where this attack ended up falling short. He just overlapped his heals a little bit too much. As you're going to see though, it's still really, really close, and he almost gets it regardless. He doesn't end up clearing out this bottom bomb tower, which does do good damage to some of his miners. He gets through most of the base, but it ends up coming up just short, as you're going to see. Just going to speed through this last little bit of the miners going through, and we're going to break down our first cleanup attempt on it after. As you can see, there's only, at this point, 4 point defenses up, and it ends up at 3 by the end of the attack. So it's really close, and it looks really cleanable, especially if you can keep that queen walk up. So let's take a look at that, shall we? This is the first cleanup attempt here, as this is Winnie, or Vip, on his Town Hall 10. And the corrections he decides to make is to reinforce the queen walk and get that value, to rely on that to help the miners stay in the core here to finish taking out this base. So he does add a 5th healer, and he does change up the funneling a little bit here, as he uses a wizard up top at 1 o'clock instead of a minion. I don't think that was necessary, and as you're going to see, the wizard actually ends up taking bad pathing and getting taken out early. It doesn't end up affecting the attack much, so it doesn't end up mattering though. But he does change up the other side of the funnel with the king up top here, as it's going to path here and down. He's going to start his miners in the same spot, but they will have to take out these few collectors first. He's only under a little bit of fire from these few point defenses, so I don't think it's a big deal, regardless of whether he starts the king over there in the middle or if he starts it up at the top. He does use a baby drag to help funnel this area in, which I think is a good call since he no longer has his king starting at 10:30. And his queen walk is going to start from the same area, and he's looking for that value we talked about in the first breakdown of taking out this first layer behind the walls and keeping the miners in the core of the base. He does use his rage spell on his queen walk to make sure that stays up, so he's really going hard for that, and he's going to need it to carry through. So we're going to see how his spell placement is, as 42 overlapped his just a little bit too much, and hopefully this one should be able to do a better job overall. He does have the same spell comp in total with a slightly different army comp, so let's take a look at how that went for him. So here we have Winnie going in, here as he's going to start with his queen walk in just a moment. He starts with the wizard funnel up at 1 o'clock. Starts the baby drag nice and early as well to make sure the queen goes down, just as the last attack went, since he did adjust the barbarian king placement. He is also going to start his miners much earlier to get mutual tan. I think that works out really well for him for the most part. He does have one unfortunate thing happen in this attack, which in my opinion probably ends up costing the whole attack. As you can see from the start of this attack, he ends up timing out, and he ends up just falling short, and we'll take a look at the percent once we get there. Starts his miners nice and early, has his stone slammer in nice and early as well. Barbarian King moves down. Barbarian King still has his ability because he isn't under as much fire since the miners got in earlier. The Hound unfortunately draws to the queen, and I think that's probably the entire difference in this attack succeeding and failing, with the queen being held up for as long as she is, and preventing her from getting the bomb tower, expo, and wizard tower down as quickly as she could. And it just holds up the attack a little bit, and you'll see why that ends up costing him in the end. So he does have very good first heal placement. It's nice and deep. His second heal, though, overlaps with his first one, when he probably should have waited until the first one was about to expire, or just placed the second one a bit deeper. So he's a little bit off on those heal spells, so there's some value that we can pick up on our cleanup attempt on this base. The king is still up, and he's tanking a cannon, actually, which is good, so he got really good mutual tanking from his king. The Hound ends up popping. He has a really good poison placement that's able to take out the pups that do go in the base, with the queen getting the rest of them. His third heal goes down in the core, and it's a good heal. Another issue I have with this attack is he just uses the freeze a little bit too early, because his miners are still under heal here. There's no reason to rush using the freeze spell when your miners are already being healed up from the damage they're taking. So at this point, he uses his last heal, and you can see that he should be able to get through this, but it's going to be really close. I think what ends up just hurting here is both that little spring trap, and he ends up having a few of his miners path to the bomb tower instead of to other core defenses like that cannon. There are a couple storages inside the base, which is good on base building part in order to hold up attacks like miners. And he does end up having some of his miners split off to the bottom with his queen, and they end up just spreading out a little bit too much. I would chalk that up more to unfortunate pathing than anything else that he did wrong or anything like that in planning. So he's going to have his queen try and finish off this base. Still has the ability, we're just going to go through this at times 2 speed. He does end up losing his healers, but that doesn't end up mattering, as he's able to get through these last few defenses with just his queen and the ability. The problem becomes that he just ends up timing out, unfortunately, and the hard part about this is, as great and as much as I love that minion funnel up top, it wouldn't have made a difference. He still has this corner hut as well as the air defense inside. Even if he'd gotten the corner hut, he's probably not going to get through the wall in time in order to get that air defense down. So this is going to end up at a 97%. So we're going to look at the small adjustments we can make in order to get this to the last little bit it needs in order to triple. So this is the final plan that does triple the base that I brought in. I decided to look at it a little bit differently, and the way I approached it was using just 3 more miners, trying to keep the extra troops for funneling and cleanup to a minimum, and just to try and overwhelm the base completely. So I end up going with only 3 healers instead of the 5, which might seem weird, as on the breakdown for Winnie's hit, I really liked the 5 healers, but what I liked even more from his attack was how early he started the miners, and of how early he started the miners, he was able to get amazing mutual tanking. So because of that, I'm just going to use 3 healers and the Queen's ability, and I'm going to have the Rage for the miners in order to keep that mutual tanking for as long as possible. With this, if the Hound does go to my Queen, like it unfortunately did for Winnie, the attack probably will die out as well, but I do think with the Rage for the miners, as well as getting them as early as possible, that the Queen won't even have a chance to encounter the Hound except by ridiculously bad luck with every miner being underground. And even then, if the King is still up, I would anticipate the Hound going to the King instead. So I'm going to have my Queen Walk start around the same spot, but as I have a tendency to do, she's probably a tile or 2 different. So instead of pathing up this way and taking out all these defenses, she ends up pathing this way and leaving this little area right here. So I do have a similar Queen Walk, which ends up getting really good value, but it's not quite the same. So then from there, I do have the BK at 12, as it doesn't really make a large difference for the miners over here at 1030 of taking a little bit of damage from these few point defenses early. I start the Slammer a teeny bit later. I don't think it really made much of a difference if it was a little earlier or later. I do go back to the minion up here, which meets a very tragic demise, unfortunately, from just really dumb luck. And I do have an archer for this area right here over at 12 to make sure, over at 3 to make sure I get this hut down. And beyond that, I do plan on having all 5 spells for my kill squad plus the freeze. So I'm hoping with the mutual tanking from the miners and the Queen Walk with the King up as well, along with better spell placement, I'll be able to take out this base. So let's take a look and see how that went. So this is my attack going in right here. As you can see, it only takes just under 2 minutes, so the base did get overwhelmed pretty well thanks to the really good planning and the initial plan from 42, as well as the adjustments and what I noticed Winnie did a bit better. So I start this attack with my Queen Walk, and she ends up taking that strange pathing as I said. I do have a wizard to help her get through the town hall as she goes right instead of left. I have the baby drag started, and I'm going to start the minion and king shortly as well. Minions going. King at 12. I start the miners right away to get the mutual tanking. My queen takes weird pathing, so I couldn't have really predicted that. Start the slammer a little bit late, but I don't think it makes much of a difference. I haven't used any spells yet, as I do see some miners getting low, but I'm not going to panic about that. Good thing for me, I do get the Hound to not go to the Queen, partially thanks to the Queen's weird pathing, also just the miners getting in very quickly. I do pick up the Archers, as well as a set of Skeletons with the poison. I have my first heal down, which was a little bit shallow. I definitely could have placed it a little bit deeper there. Doesn't end up making a big difference, luckily. The Hound locks onto the King, and as you can see up top here at 115, we have my minion going down to an air bomb that was set off by the Stone Slammer right before the Stone Slammer went down. So I do lose that minion, unfortunately. I have the Rage right in the middle. I don't overlap it too much with anything else, as I let the miners kind of go through everything until they're almost out of the Rage, with my second heal going down, going into the second Inferno Tower. I do have this section over here at 9 o'clock still up, but as you'll see, I do have enough to take it out at the end. I have the free spell coming in a little bit early, overlapping, but it ends up not making a huge difference, so that's something I definitely could have corrected. The last heal comes down just to try and cover as many miners as possible to make sure I have enough up to finish out the last bit of the space, since there are a couple storages my miners have to get through. And at this point, my queen went beautifully as she was able to get really solid value. And at this point, it's just clean up. My king is still up as the hound is on him, which really helped because Winnie pretty much undoubtedly would have tripled had that have happened with his attack. And I'm able to have an extra heal just with a little bit better spell placement, even if I still overlapped a little bit. You can see there was definitely some room for error thanks to a really good plan and some really good adjustments. Just seeing the mutual tanking as well as the value from the Queen Walk and getting everything in quickly and getting the base down, well, super fast. Alright, so we're going to break down the next base, which was a fresh attack on a different Town Hall 10 here. So let's take a look at that. This is our second base that I'm going to show here. I decided to do a Queen Charge Quadquake Laloon, as I had this army ready and went to call a different base, and it was called about 5 minutes before, and then I went to call another base, and it was called about 8 minutes before. So luckily, both those bases were tripled, and I was able to pick up the triple on this, so I guess it was kind of fate for that to go as it was, so it allowed us to get some good value for the amount of attacks invested instead of me coming up short on any other bases. So my plan for this one is to have my queen start down here at 6 o'clock. I start her just a little bit to the right as I decide that in order to get my queen to go into the base right here, I'm going to need to start the funnel a bit earlier. I decide to use my king for the funnel. So I'm going to have my king right over here, funnel out this area, right in here, to get as much value as he can. And I'm going to have one wizard right down here to the left of my queen to pick out these couple buildings, and unless a Tesla pops, it should be a very cheap and effective funnel. I do have 3 goblins to help speed through the town hall, which is down here at 6, as you'll see once we do start the replay. So I decide to use Quakes here instead of 1 or even 2 jumps for the same spell space, as this right here is what I'm looking to open up, and it's a 9 tiles apart, so I know a jump won't get there, but you might think, what about just using 2 jumps for it? I want my queen to have as much time in the base and as much free range as possible, so it allows me to keep this area right here open, as well as these walls that aren't actually attached to the base, get them out of the way so my queen won't automatically walk around. So she's able to go in and get as much value as possible. I do have 3 rages for her, as well as her ability. The Stone Slammer does not go with her, it's part of my Lalo. You may notice at this point I don't have any haste spells. I know it's going to be a slow Lalo, but if I can pick up this much value with my Queen charge, I think it's going to end up being worth it. I do have the freeze, which I plan on using right here in order to get my loons through that Inferno Tower and air defense. And beyond that, I do have 11 minions for cleanup. I like to make sure I'm going to be able to finish these attacks instead of just timing out, as we've all had way too many time fails in KT. So, I'm going to start this, queen going to the right, going in, king nice and early, and then I'm going to have cleanup right after I drop my loons to make sure I'm able to get this base down in time. So let's take a look at this. So I start my attack right down here at the bottom, just to the right of the town hall with my queen. I do the quakes first, as I like to zoom all the way in to make sure I get an exact tile drop to open up what I want to open up. Have the wizard down. I know the expo's on the queen, so I get a very, very cheap funnel. And unless any Teslas popped up, I know that it's going to get me through there quick. I have my king starting over here at 3. And I'm quite excited. I see a Tesla pop up for any extra value. I get an early rage down on my queen to get through the enemy queen. Helps me beat through the expo and storage faster as well. I realize I have an entire Tesla farm at 3, and 2 of the Teslas do stay up. But I do plan on starting my Lalo from that side, so I will be able to go heavy into it to start. My king gets some really solid mutual tanking for my queen, as he does live and go in the base little ways. Luckily I don't have a healer switch, as we know how many attacks get killed just off healer switching for even a couple seconds and forcing themselves into air defense or Inferno Tower range. Or of course letting the queen die. My second rage is down, and I'm able to get solid value out of that. At this point I decide that because the clan castle is so deep, I'm going to use my ability instead of a third rage in order to have that rage for the clan castle. So at this point, I drop my last rage right as I'm about to get into CC range. I start my Lalo pretty heavy. I like to use my slammer behind a hound with a few other loons, just in case they're able to soak up any traps for it. A lot of people use their slammer solo, and it gets taken out pretty quickly by black bombs, so I do like to have that reinforcement. It is a Hound Loon CC, which most of the time would pretty much kill the Queen Walk, but if you take a look, my Queen is under almost no fire. She's going to take out the Inferno Tower just before she locks onto the Hound, and I get the poison down to make sure the Loon isn't able to kill her as well. My Lalo continues. I start at 1 o'clock with my second Hound and some more Loons, going nice and heavy, and I start my minions right after that, knowing they're not going to be targeted. There's nothing on my queen, so she's able to have free range here. My Lalo's moving very, very slowly through the base at this point, as I still have a hound right around half health and some loons and my slammer. I do use a couple more loons for that pathing, and I see there's a troll Tesla at 9, so I use my last 2 loons there to make sure that goes down. Have more minions up top from 10 to 11 to make sure I get that taken out. Hound's taken care of at this point. I did use my freeze probably a little early, but I was able to get that air defense down, which allows me to keep my Stone Slammer up much longer. So my Slammer's able to come in and help finish off the rest of the defenses here, as my queen is still alive, which I could hardly believe, but I was really happy for her. She's able to help with the cleanup and mutual tanking. I have about 5 balloons up along with my Stone Slammer still, and cleanup right behind it. So, gotta remember that early cleanup, as I used to time out quite often, so now I'm able to get that down really quick in fear of time failing. So, that was the second breakdown for the triple, and now we're going to take a look at my 12v12 attempt that I got in this war for our last base. here we have my 12v12 attempt toward the end of war, as we were able to open up one. When I first saw this base very early on, I marked it for my favorite 12v12 due to a couple features I really liked on it. First one being wall wrecker pathing to the town hall, opens up this inferno compartment, as well as this channel right here, which is probably the most critical base design flaw in this base, as getting into that channel is very easy, and one jump spell over the eagle right there is going to open up a lot for the kill squad to take out. So I do go very heavy on my kill squad. As you can see down below, I have a P.E.K.K.A. Bobat trained up. I plan on using a P.E.K.K.A. at 9 and a P.E.K.K.A. at 6, with 3 wizards behind them to get the funnel. And then I'm going to have 3 wizards for cleanup. I have an ice golem for this wizard tower up here, as I plan on my bat wave coming from right up top over here, coming through this way. I have 2 rages for my kill squad. I plan on using one early to make sure my kill squad is nice and healthy, since I am investing a jump spell over the eagle. And then I'll have my warden ability for the town hall and a rage for the core of the base. I don't have a poison spell, and I chose not to take one because I know a lot of Town Hall 12s are running Hound clan castles, and if it's a Hound, I'm probably not going to have to worry about it, other than with my queen taking out whatever else it may be, whether it's a loon, 2 loons, a loon, 5 archers, or a baby dragon. So, I'm going to have everything else in my kill squad outside of that ice golem right in the middle, and I'm hoping I can take out about this much of the base. So if I'm able to take out that much, then I think my bat wave should be able to finish off the rest of the defenses up top. Beyond that, I think I just need to be good on spell placement. I'm really hoping I'm able to take out the clan castle quickly if it's something like a baby dragon, 2 witches. So the warden ability is what I'm going to rely on to make sure my kill squad doesn't get stuck on that for too long and take a ton of damage in the process. So that's the initial plan. Let's take a look at how I was able to execute it. Alright, as you can see, this attack clocks in just over 2 minutes, so time doesn't end up being an issue. I have plenty of cleanup for it. So I start my funnel very quickly down at 6 and up here at 9 o'clock to get that underway. Once I get a little bit of the edges set, I start my kill squad pretty early, as well as I want to try and get as much mutual tanking as possible. I pretty much just dump everything in quickly. One mistake I absolutely made was dropping my queen too high, as I wanted her to take out these buildings at 9, such as the wizard tower, but she ends up walking on me. Fortunately for me, it ends up being a blessing in disguise, as there she goes from the D storage over to the mortar. It ends up being a Hound with 10 archers, which is the best possible clan castle I could have ran into in this case, as the Hound isn't going to be affected by my kill squad and the archers go down quickly. I have my first rage in. I'm holding on to my warden ability to make sure I can get through the town hall, knowing that even if I lose my bowlers right now, I'm still going to have my CC bowlers, as I do take 2 Valks and 4 bowlers in my CC for this attack, as my queen ends up getting incredible value up here at 9 to 10 o'clock. So at this point, I've already used my second rage, I have my jump spell down, and I can see this attack is going really well. So the one issue with my queen not going in, even though it was really helpful, is I don't get this Inferno Tower down that's remaining. So I end up deciding to bat bomb the Inferno Tower. I drop my Ice Golem, and I immediately drop my bats and my freeze on the Inferno Tower, knowing that if I can get that out and I still have the Wizard Tower tanked, the rest of these defenses at 12 to 1 o'clock should go down with relative comfort. So I'm able to get the Inferno Tower down. I have perfect timing with the Ice Golem going. I start my Wizard immediately after the Wizard Tower goes down right there for cleanup. And at this point, I look down and I realize I have a stack of bowlers as well as a couple P.E.K.K.A.s up still, and I know that this base is already long gone. So, one thing that does happen is I believe I end up popping the Hound from, I guess, a wizard? So I end up popping it regardless, but it ends up being a non-factor as the cleanup happens really quickly. Oh, it's from the bats end up popping it. But that's no biggie as the bats end up taking out the lava pups anyway. So that is one of my favorite 12v12 triples I've ever done, as just about everything except for the queen went exactly as I could have wanted. Alright, that's going to wrap up this video, and I'll have another one recapping some hits from our next war.